Hey guys, today we'll be covering a 2020 miniseries called Trap. The episode starts with a couple, Junsu and Aiji, making out on a couch. In the heat of the moment, Junsu tries to undress Aiji, but she stops him, saying she is not ready yet. She is worried that after they sleep together, Junsu might change his behavior towards her. Hearing this, Junsu is disappointed, as he was hoping his girlfriend would make love to him. The next day, they part ways. While Junsu goes to college, Haiji meets with her best friends, Sion and Unji, who is her flatmate, at a cafe. Unji gossips about a guy who dumped his girlfriend after sleeping with her. This makes Haiji even more insecure and confused about her relationship with Junsu. At college, she meets another friend, Woojin, who is very protective of her, and the two head to class and join Junsu and Sion. There, the couple again get into an argument. The following week, it's Haiji and Junsu's 200th day anniversary, so Haiji waits for Junsu at a cafe, but he texts her saying he's in a group meeting at home. Suspicious, she goes to his apartment where she finds a girl's boots, handbag, and a shrug outside Junsu's bedroom. Just when she's about to open the door, Sion interrupts her. The following day, when Haiji, Woojin, and Junsu are at a cafe, the latter prepares to leave for his apartment. Since he has to attend a group meeting and do assignments with Sion, he decides to leave immediately after getting her text. However, Haiji insists on joining them. Later at Junsu's apartment, Haiji overhears Sion asking Junsu for a kiss. Although she is startled, she believes Sion is just joking around. However, her worst fears are realized that evening when she catches Junsu cheating on her red-handed with her best friend, Sion. Devastated and heartbroken, Haiji goes to a club and gets drunk. She finds a guy there and in the heat of the moment hooks up with him in a motel. The next morning when she goes to college, the rumor about her and Junsu's breakup has already spread. As she wanders around confused, Woojin approaches her and takes her out for lunch, where they are joined by Unji. Later at the college, Haiji sees a guy she hooked up with last night. She desperately tries to avoid him, but this only makes Woojin curious. Later, during a course's group division, Haiji is shocked to find out that she's teamed with Junsu and the guy from the motel, Kyung-woo, who happens to attend the same college. Kyung-woo asks for her number, and she gives it without hesitation. When Junsu sees this, he tries to stop her, but Haiji corrects him, saying that they're not a couple anymore, and leaves the classroom. Outside, she is followed by Kyung-woo, who tries to talk to her about something important. Instead, she tells him to forget whatever happened the other night, ignores him, and leaves. In the following scene, Haiji discovers that rumors have been spread on social media about her clubbing. The rumor is that she went clubbing and cheated on Junsu with a random guy. Later, Kyung-woo runs to Haiji and talks to her about being friends. However, Haiji seems uninterested and awkward after whatever happened between them. Since she doesn't want to make it more complicated, she walks away. After her class is over, Haiji waits for Unji in the hallway, but gets upset when she finds out Unji has to stay longer. Meanwhile, she notices that someone is following her and gets scared. She immediately calls Unji, prompting the stalker to hide in a corner. After getting so much hate because of the rumor, Haiji tries to avoid everyone and hide herself. In the locker room, she meets Woojin, who convinces her that she hasn't done anything wrong and that she doesn't need to hide herself. In the next scene, Haiji walks out to meet Woojin, but on the way, she is again followed by the stalker, who forces her to go out with him and have a drink. As Haiji desperately tries to avoid the boy, Kyung-woo arrives and threatens the stalker not to follow Haiji ever again. Afterwards, Haiji and Kyung-woo stay for a drink, and she clarifies that she doesn't want to be in a new relationship now. As they converse, they bond well. The next day on the way to class, Haiji sees Junsu and Sion making out. When the class is over, Junsu tries to talk to Haiji, saying he still likes her and wants her back. However, she gives him a cold shoulder and says that she is seeing someone else now. Later, she goes to grab a bite with Kyung-woo and shares that her ex has been bothering her lately. On being asked, Haiji explains that Junsu cheated on her with her best friend and made it look like it was her fault. Seeing Haiji sad, Kyung-woo suggests she show her ex-boyfriend that she's better off without him. Haiji immediately agrees and comes up with an idea to act like she and Kyung-woo are seeing each other in front of Junsu. The following day, during a group assignment, the two of them arrive in front of Junsu holding hands, but the latter is skeptical. However, Kyung-woo ensures that Junsu is convinced with their made-up story. He even asks him to stop bothering Haiji. After the class, Kyung-woo walks with Haiji wrapped around his arms, making her ex-boyfriend envious. Later that evening while walking home, Haiji is followed by Junsu, who begs her to take him back. He apologizes and assures that he won't make the same mistake again. But Haiji doesn't buy it. Just then, Unji arrives and strikes Junsu, telling him to leave. The next day, when Kyung-woo notices Junsu following them, he kisses Haiji. After Kyung-woo leaves, Junsu apologizes to Haiji and says that his relationship with Sion was only a one-time thing. This time, Haiji cleverly records him. However, Sion arrives and hears the recording. She becomes furious and slaps Junsu before leaving abruptly. A few days later, Kyungwoo meets Haiji and asks why she hasn't been in touch lately. When she explains that she feels better now after clearing things with Junsu, Kyungwoo asks her to go out with him. However, Haiji declines, saying that she doesn't want to date anyone at the moment. The next day, she meets Kyungwoo for lunch. While they are eating, Kyungwoo gets cheesy and flirts with her. He still tries to convince Haiji to date him, but she is uninterested. In the next scene, Haiji sees Junsu with another girl. Meanwhile, Eunjun approaches her and explains that Junsu has been trying to charm the freshman, pretending to be nice to everyone. She then warns Haiji not to fall for any guy who seems kind and sweet to every girl. Later that day, Haiji decides to go on a coffee date with Kyungwoo. During their date, they are interrupted by Yoonji, who is surprised to see the two together. Turns out that Yoonji and Kyungwoo are from the same department. Suddenly, Yoonji gets a call and excuses herself. Sensing the opportunity, Kyungwoo and Haiji go somewhere else where they can be alone. They then go sit in a park while enjoying ice cream and listening to music. As they relate, Haiji woefully expresses her trust issues. Kyungwoo consoles her by saying that her first relationship failed because her ex was unfaithful, and that is on him, not her. He also says that he's different from Junsu, so she should give him a chance. Just when it seems like Haiji has started to like Kyungwoo, she sees him with Sion at the cafe. She confronts them and asks them what's going on, but it turns out they're just doing their assignments together. When she walks away, Kyungwoo follows her and apologizes for the misunderstanding. After this, Haiji reveals that she became insecure because Sion is the girl her ex-boyfriend cheated on her with. Later that night, Haiji meets Woojin and shares that she has a crush on someone, but she is scared of being hurt again. Woojin suggests she take her time and learn more about the guy before concluding anything. The next day, Kyungwoo goes to the library with Haiji, and the two share a romantic moment. Afterwards, he walks Haiji home and explains that he won't bother her until she decides she wants to go out with him. The following morning, Haiji goes to college and gets a text from Kyungwoo saying that he will be busy with Yoonji for exam preparations. A few hours later, she goes to see Kyungwoo in the cafe. As she is about to enter the cafe, she sees Yoonji holding Kyungwoo's hand and is devastated. It's even more surprising for Haiji when later that night, Kyungwoo carries Yoonji home to her apartment after she gets drunk. The next day after class, she again sees Kyungwoo with Eunji and feels sad. Meanwhile, Woojin arrives and takes her to the park where they drink and reminisce about their old days in high school. Afterwards, when Haiji gets home, Eunji asks if something is bothering her. However, Haiji simply replies that she's tired and asks her friend to leave the room. The next day, Haiji runs into Kyungwoo, who expresses his sadness for being ignored. When he asks her why she is acting strangely, Haiji replies that she doesn't want him around anymore. Without having any idea about Haiji's changed behavior, Kyungwoo still tries to convince her. Meanwhile, Woojin arrives and warns Kyungwoo to stop making Haiji uncomfortable. He then holds her hands and takes her with him. Later that night, Haiji is followed by someone, making her uncomfortable. Just then, Woojin appears and walks her home. Upon reaching their destination, he confesses that he has a crush on her and gives her a gift. He then says he will wait for an answer as long as it takes and will respect whatever her decision will be. A few days later, when Haiji sees Kyungwoo, she gets upset. So, she goes to eat outside alone. On her way back, she collides with a drunkard who messes with her and pushes her to the ground. Just then, Woojin arrives and fights the man off. Later, he cleans Haiji's wounds and comforts her. She is overwhelmed receiving such care and attention from Woojin. When Haiji arrives home, she is confronted by Eunji, who is worried about their friendship. Since Haiji has been avoiding her, Eunji wants to clear up if there's any misunderstanding, but the former seems unresponsive. Following this, Haiji goes to a park where she is joined by Woojin. She explains to him that she's been taking her anger out on Yoonji, although she hasn't done anything wrong. It scares her to think that Eunji will be gone from her life if she doesn't control her anger and trust issues. Not only that, Haiji is stressed, thinking that everyone will eventually leave her. However, Woojin promises to stick by her side and look out for her, as long as she doesn't push him away. We are then taken to a flashback where Haiji is being followed. Turns out that the stalker was none other than Woojin. Back in the present, as Haiji tries to make amends with Eunji, they decide to go shopping and karaoke to spend some time together. When Woojin discovers that Woojin has been gifting macarons to Haiji, she gets suspicious and asks her friend if she's dating Woojin. Haiji immediately denies it, and as a result, Eunji confesses that she has feelings for Woojin. This leaves Haiji in utter disbelief. Later, when she is in class with Woojin, Haeji gets a text from Eunji, apologizing and asking her to forget that she has a crush on Woojin. It turns out that Woojin has hacked Haeji's phone because he gets the same text by Eunji on his phone. After class, when Haeji tries to talk to him, he stops her and says that he'll still be friends with her even after her snub, leaving Haeji feeling relieved. Later that night, Haeji worries about Eunji because she hasn't returned home yet. Just then, she gets a text from Kyung-woo asking her to meet at the playground near her house. At the same time, Woojin starts texting Haeji to not go outside, but all his texts are deleted on their own. He then calls her, but she doesn't receive it. In a flashback, we see Woojin finding a bag of lollipops for Haeji from an anonymous person in her locker. On his way to class, he throws the bag in the dustbin. Another flashback shows Woojin following Haeji home. Surprisingly, someone else is also following her, but he walks away as soon as he sees Woojin. The next flashback shows Woojin talking to Kyung-woo about someone who wears black clothes and a cap, stalking Haeji, but she's not sure who it is. So, one day, Kyung-woo decides to follow the stalker. Unexpectedly, there are two guys similar in appearance. Kyung-woo is able to catch one of them, who is Woojin. However, he claims that he has been following the stalker himself to protect Haeji. In the next flashback, we learn that Woojin hadn't hacked her phone. Once, when Haeji's phone was dead, she logged in on Woojin's phone to look up a new restaurant she had liked on social media. However, she forgot to log out. When Woojin noticed the stalker's text on Haeji's messenger, he chose to keep an eye on her account to identify the stalker. Back in the present, Seon tells Kyung-woo that a guy from a different department has been putting food in her locker. Turns out that he's the same stalker guy who earlier forced Haeji to go out with him. Another flashback reveals the time when Woojin finds out that Haeji's phone is hacked and that his messages are being deleted before she can see it. Also, the stalker has texted Kyung-woo to wait at the college's cafe instead of the playground. At present, Haeji is waiting for Kyung-woo in the playground. Just then, her phone dies and the stalker approaches her. He confesses that he has been stalking her and sending her gifts. Like a psycho, he tries to persuade Haeji to date him. When she threatens to send the audio recording of his confession to her friends, he reminds her that her phone is dead. When he pushes her to the ground, Kyung-woo suddenly arrives and pushes him back. He fights with the stalker, threatening to have him jailed. The next day, Haeji looks happy and at ease, now that the stalker is taken care of and all the misunderstandings cleared up. When Kyung-woo walks her to her classroom, she asks him not to worry about her anymore. Since Woojin has not been around lately, Haeji calls and meets him in the park. She thanks him for informing Kyung-woo about the stalker in the nick of time. As they are back to being only friends, Woojin decides to take the next semester off and enlist in the military. He believes that being away from Haeji will make his feelings for her go away. Hearing this, Haeji breaks down and Woojin embraces her. The episode ends as Kyung-woo and Haeji restart their relationship and live happily ever after.